today for a bail hearing. A date will also be set for new sentencing procedures for his murder conviction. Last week, the Supreme Court of Appeal overturned an earlier ruling of culpable homicide. Pistorius has been under house arrest at his uncle's home in Pretoria since October.
The accused's conviction and sentence on count 1 are set aside and replaced with the following: guilty of murder, with the accused having had criminal intent in the form of dolus eventualis.
A groundbreaking ruling that changed the course of Oscar Pistorius' legal battle. Now back in court to ascertain whether he will remain under house arrest or return to prison while he awaits sentencing for murder.
The seriousness of the offence being a murder conviction, that in itself is very serious, and obviously that must be taken into consideration. That would be the one argument in favour of the state opposing bail. However, I do not see them seriously opposing bail.
This will be the first time that the public will have full glare of Pistorius after he was spotted reporting for community service. The state is tight-lipped on whether it will oppose bail.
He was out on bail. He complied with all the bail conditions. He attended his court proceedings up until the trial was finalized. Unless there are new circumstances that have come to the fore that warrant the state to deviate from that position.
Pistorius faces the prospect of up to 15 years behind bars. Deputy Judge President Aubrey Ledwaba will preside over the matter, which is expected to be brief, while whether Oscar Pistorius will spend Christmas at home or not will also be made known. But the actual date for the sentencing is unlikely this year. Griselda Lewis, SABC News in Johannesburg.
Let's get more now from today's court bail hearing from Griselda Lewis, who is now outside of the High Court in Pretoria. Griselda, a very good morning to you. I know you've given us some details, but I think let's get a little bit more as to exactly what is going to happen today.
Well, certainly, and I think more importantly, everybody would want to get a glimpse of Oscar Pistorius. Of course, you'd recall the last time that Oscar Pistorius was seen as one who reported for community service at a local police station. And of course, he'll be appearing at this court. You recall just last week, the Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein had overturned that culpable homicide conviction to murder. And what's expected more crucially, I think here, Liam, this morning, is that we're expected to know whether Oscar Pistorius' lawyers intend to appeal the Supreme Court of Appeal's verdict that Oscar Pistorius is guilty of murder. We're expecting an indication now whether Oscar Pistorius' lawyers will raise a constitutional matter. Of course, you would recall when Justice Leach was reading out his judgment, he did indicate that this case had received unprecedented media coverage, both locally and internationally. It had never been seen before. It had been live on television. And you'd also recall when the trial judge, Judge Thokozile Masipa, was handing down her sentence, she had indicated that Oscar Pistorius was a poor witness. So perhaps Oscar Pistorius' lawyers will want to use that, the glare of the world's media, to indicate that Oscar Pistorius was a poor witness on that basis, the glare of the world's media, both locally and internationally. But what we also do know is that Oscar Pistorius had you'll be appearing at this court under voluntary surrender, which means that no warrant of arrest was issued for Oscar Pistorius. The National Prosecuting Authority maintains that. But in terms of the bail application, Leanne, we're not expecting the state to oppose the bail application. Of course, you would recall that when Oscar Pistorius was granted bail the last time, he did stick to the conditions. He'd certainly gone through this trial without any hiccups. He'd appeared every single day. And of course, also that Oscar Pistorius had showed up when necessary at this court. So even though the court does need to take into account the seriousness of the conviction, but what could certainly balance that is perhaps stricter bail conditions, perhaps that Oscar Pistorius might need to report perhaps once or twice to a police station, perhaps the amount as well that might be granted to Oscar Pistorius. Certainly those are some of the options that might be perused here this morning, but that's what we're expecting inside this court. But the world's media again is expected to descend here this morning to see if Oscar Pistorius will be granted that bail, and of course for his lawyers to indicate whether they will be appealing the Supreme Court of Appeal's verdict. That's where they found him guilty of murder.
Griselda Lewis reporting for us there outside the High Court, or the Supreme Court, not the Supreme Court of Appeal, I beg your pardon, the High Court there in Pretoria. And we will be crossing to her again throughout the programme just to ask her a few more questions about the appearance of Oscar Pistorius this morning.